Welcome to Travel Hacking for Authors. I'm Cecelia Mecca, an indie author who writes both historical romance and contemporary romance under the pen name Bella Michaels. I'm so excited to be here at Fiction Marketing Academy to bring you a little bit of an off topic presentation, but not so much because as authors, we either love to travel for pleasure or a lot of times are traveling for work conferences or just for inspiration for a book. So, travel and fiction writing, I think, go together really well. And one of the things that I've learned in this past year with this hobby that's new to me is that travel doesn't have to be expensive if you use some of the strategies that we're going to talk about. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go ahead and show you all of these places this year, mostly for free. Now, I did pay for some Airbnbs and Disney. We are Disney Vacation Club members, so we paid for the rooms, but all of these flights for free. New York City and Philly, that's local for me, within a few hour drive. But I did two girls' weekends, one in Philly, one in New York, both at five-star hotels that I would not have normally stayed at, with all kinds of amenities because it was free. All from travel hacking. Italy two times, technically three because I went to Sicily once, but some of these things we rented an Airbnb one time in Sicily. I was at a writers conference another time in Italy, and so that was already paid for in terms of the resort, but all of the flights were free to all of these places. And kind of the coup de grace this year was in April. I took a Virgin Atlantic cruise with my mother, and it was completely free. And that one was really cool because it was all expenses paid. So everything but alcoholic drinks were free. The flights were free. The hotel we stayed at the night before the cruise, I got free, and then the cruise itself, and that included food and everything. So that one was really really cool. And in case I forget to mention it later, there's a group, and I know I do have this in the presentation, but there's a group called 10 Times Travel, which is probably the place that I go to most often these days to continue to learn about travel hacking. And somebody had just posted in there, hey, if you have City Points, City is one of the banks that you can earn rewards from. If you have City Points, you can book a Virgin cruise right now for like 60,000 points per person, which is basically a one-time sign-up bonus. You can get a new City card. I have the City Premier and get 60 or more thousand points just for signing up, something we're going to talk about. And for that one sign-up bonus, I was able to take this cruise for free. So, there are ways to emails that you can sign up for and ways to find out about these so you don't have to constantly go searching. So that kind of came to me. And as soon as I saw it, the timing was right and I jumped on it. And a month after I booked it, mom and I took that cruise to the Caribbean. So completely free. So that was really, really cool. Went to SPF, Self Publishing Formula Conference in England. The flights over there were free. So, it's really, really cool. But it's definitely become a hobby. And, there's all different levels of travel hacking. I'm new to this. I've only been doing this just over a year. And I have a mentor who's been travel hacking for more than 10 years. And obviously, he's at a completely different level than me. It's easy to get started. We're going to talk about how to get started. But whether you really make this a full blown kind of hobby, as I have, and have spreadsheets and keep track of everything, or you just want to take, you know, one or two free trips a year and really not kind of make it a big part of your life, you can do that. So, but before we talk about our travel hacking goals, which is something I'd like to get to, let's jump into, first of all, what is travel hacking? It doesn't sound all that nice. It kind of sounds like you're doing something wrong, but you're not. Travel hacking, there's nothing illegal or wrong about it. Travel hacking involves utilizing loyalty programs, credit card rewards, and smart spending strategies to travel for free or at a reduced cost. And so that's kind of it in a nutshell. The key phrase there, as I mentioned, is smart spending. So it's really important to do this responsibly, or you could get yourself into trouble. There are people potentially out there that maybe shouldn't travel hack. You want to pay your credit cards off at the end of the month. You want to pay them on time. One of the misnomers with travel hacking is that, oh, I'm worried about my credit score if it will go down opening all of these cards. I've opened, I think, 10 cards in the last just over a year. My credit score has actually gone up, and that's something I'll mention later too. So that's not really a concern. However, you need to be committed to having a high credit score, monitoring your credit score, and making sure that you're paying everything off on time. But if you do that, a lot of people don't. And those interest rates, banks make a lot of money on. And so they're able to offer these elevated sign up bonuses and these things that responsible um, credit card owners can take advantage of and travel hack. And so, yeah, there's nothing wrong with it. It's totally legal. Obviously, I wouldn't be doing this. It's absolutely fine to do. But unfortunately, the word hacking itself doesn't necessarily kind of have that positive connotation, but it's absolutely on the up and up. So just wanted to put that out there and dispel one of the biggest myths, which is that it could hurt your credit score. As a matter of fact, most people, if they do it responsibly, the travel hackers' credit scores will go up. So that is not a concern um, that you need to have. So let's jump into a little bit more of an overview. All right, so travel hacking, kind of at its core, we talked about, I mentioned bank reward programs and credit cards. So there are different types of programs out there that we can travel hack. And you saw me talk about airlines, airline miles, and free flights. Programs do include airline miles, hotel loyalty points, and then the biggie, credit card reward programs, each offering unique benefits and opportunities. So we can talk about credit cards specific to airlines, or credit cards specific to hotels, or my favorite, and a lot of travel hackers' favorites, the credit card reward programs, which are versatile that you can use for lots of different things. And travel being one of the best ways to utilize those. And so, what does that mean? We're going to get into it a little bit. But those are kind of the three things that we're talking about: airline cards, hotel loyalty points, and credit card reward programs. So, when we talk about miles or points, and rewards, essentially we're talking about the same thing, but they're not, because you use miles differently than you would use points. For instance, if you have a co-branded, let's say an American Airlines card, you're using those just for miles, as opposed to a credit card reward program like Chase Ultimate Rewards, which we're going to talk about in a bit. Those rewards could be used for a free flight, but they could also be used on hotels. They could also be used in lots of other ways, cash back and shopping online, things like that. But most people with travel hacking will say you get your best bang for your buck when you're using those rewards for travel. And that's why we're here. If you want to, get cash back or shop on Amazon with, rewards that you've earned, this presentation isn't necessarily for you, because we're focused mostly on the travel. Okay, so excuse me while I have a little sip of tea as we move on. What is your travel hacking goal? One of the first things that you want to do is decide what you'd like to do with travel hacking. So a lot of people say, well, I just want to travel for free. And that's fair enough. But kind of niching down just a little bit. Do you want to earn points for free flights to travel all over for business or for pleasure? Are you focused? Maybe you don't love to fly all over the place, but you're focused on hotel stays, staycations, and places. Maybe you live in an exotic place already and just want to, get away to write and focus on hotel stays. Totally fine. Some people enjoy earning status. They want to travel first class or utilize lounges. And I will say, I was not a lounge girl before travel hacking, and now I've completely been converted. Absolutely love lounge access. It's for me, wasn't one of my initial goals, but it's now absolutely a part of my travel hacking strategy. I always maintain at least one or two cards that will give me lounge access, because I am traveling a lot and I really like. And if you haven't stayed in an airport lounge before and you were uninitiated like me, once you do it, I will warn you, it's hard to go back. Lounges are great because they usually give you free food, free drinks. If you're a nervous flyer like me, you can have a mimosa or two before the flight, on the house, and you plug in lots of places to sit. Some are really nice. There's a lounge in JFK, a Centurion Lounge, which is American Express. They have a speakeasy, and sometimes I worry when I go to that lounge that I'll miss my flight because it's such a nice lounge. But for some people, the status and the lounges and the perks of travel are kind of what's really important. So kind of know what your first goal is, and that will help. For instance, if you live near an airport hub and you do like to fly a lot, and there's a certain airline, like I said, that has a hub, near you at an airport, maybe that's the airline that you want to focus on, and maybe that's where you want to start, like using airline miles, particularly for that specific airline to fly for free. And that's a very specific case. And so everyone kind of has their different goals. For some, it's family travel. You might want to start off by earning 4 free flights to go to Disney or take your family to Hawaii or whatever it happens to be. It's really helpful to know kind of what your first goal is, even if later on it's more to just kind of earn points. What do you want to do first? Is it a trip? Is it a flight? Know that. And then the card situation can be geared specifically to you because everyone has different goals. All right. So once you know that, I've mentioned this already, sign up bonuses. I think I said it, but now we're going to get into what it is. So there's a lot of ways to earn credit card points. You can shop online. There are portals. Rakuten, for instance, is one. I utilize that when I'm on my desktop to shop, and then I can earn American Express points. There are lots of ways to earn category spending, which we're going to talk about, where, I use a certain card just for groceries. But the biggie are sign up bonuses. And a sign up bonus is when a credit card will give you a bonus for signing up for their card. This is the most lucrative method for earning points or miles. And a lot of times in the travel hacking world, they're called subs. A sub is when a bank offers a special bonus for spending a certain amount of money within a predetermined time. Usually it's a few months. 3 months is very standard, 4 months. Sometimes it's up to 6 months. One thing to remember, though, that you don't ever want to manufacture spend while travel hacking. That's really important. So, if you get a particular card because it has a really lucrative sign up bonus, but you have no plans for meeting that bonus and you have to buy things you wouldn't have otherwise, that's manufacturing spending. And that's not something we do. Instead, you want to be more strategic. If you sign up for a business card because you have a few book covers coming up that you have to pay for, and that's going to be a hefty bill, or for a personal card where you need to buy a new refrigerator, like that's a great time for a new card. Or if you just know that a particular card maybe is only $3,000 dollars to spend in 3 months, and that's not a problem at all, then it's a different situation. But you don't want to get yourself into a position where you sign up for a card with a hefty sign up bonus, but no way to meet that spend. Because another tenet of travel hacking is never to miss a bonus. When you sign up for a card, you want to make sure that you hit that sub. So, like I said, it's usually a certain amount of time, a certain amount of money. And once you hit that, boom, you get all of these points. One of the things you want to look for is an elevated bonus. There's lots of resources that I'm going to share with you. Two of my favorites are the Points Guy and 10 Times Travel, which I've already mentioned. Every month, they will put out, kind of best cards for this month, and you can see whether a bonus is elevated. So in general, then there are exceptions. I won't sign up for a card unless it has an elevated bonus. If, card X always is a $50,000 sign up bonus, which is kind of on the lighter side, I'll wait for that particular card, even if it's one I want, until it has a 60 or 70 or $80,000 bonus, and then that's when I'll grab it. That's called an elevated bonus, so you want to look for those. And also, as I mentioned already, the spending minimum. Be sure you're able to meet that spending minimum before you sign up for the card. So subs are kind of the important, most lucrative method for earning points, and you're going to hear a lot more about those. Here's an example of a current sub. This is a really good one. So the ink, there's a whole line of Chase ink cards. Chase is a great program. They have what's called, their rewards are called Ultimate Rewards. And their inks are business cards, which I have all of them. And you can do that. You can sign up, obviously, for different cards and even in the same program. This one is the business preferred. And right now, it's an elevated bonus at 100,000 points. You can do a lot with 100,000 points. For example, just this week, I booked a JetBlue flight. And I tend to not necessarily always fly or very rarely fly business or first class. If I'm going across country or international, I'll give that a hard look. but I do fly coach a lot because I don't mind it, and if I have the right seat, and especially on a 2 or 3 hour flight. And I like to travel a lot. So for me, the priority is kind of quantity. A lot of other people like to save their points and, or really find good redemptions where they're flying first class only. And that's a strategy as well. But for me, I was perfectly happy to grab a flight from Newark to Orlando for a writer's retreat in December for under 20,000 points. And so you can see, and I actually use the Chase Ultimate Rewards. I transfer those out to JetBlue. Um, there's a lot you can do with 100,000 points. So this is a great offer. Right now, this always has a $95 annual fee as well. So that's something that you're going to take a look at. Most of the cards with the best bonuses do come with annual fees, and some of them are pretty high as well. And I know when I first got started in travel hacking, I wasn't used to paying a lot of annual fees. For example, I have a card, the American Express Platinum, which is, I don't know what it is now, but at the time I think it was a $695 fee. So for a lot of people, that's a little bit scary initially. And we'll talk about why it shouldn't be. But $95 annual fee is not bad at all, especially for what you're getting. There is a higher spend, I would say, 8,000. Now it's usually 15,000, so that's why this is such a great offer. But right now it's $8,000 in the first 3 months. So if you had something specific for your business that you knew, hey, that's not a problem, I can do that in 3 months, then this is a card that you'd want to grab for multiple reasons. But this is just an example of an elevated sign up bonus for a card. We're going to talk in a little bit about Chase 524. And basically, Chase has a rule where you can only open 5 cards in 24 months. And so getting started with Chase is never a bad idea because that way you kind of start the clock on your Chase cards. They're the only ones that have that particular rule. Others have their own rules. American Express, for instance, has a lifetime rule where you can only earn a sub on each card one time. So, I don't want to get into all of the rules for all of the cards because there's lots of them, but you can do the research on your specific card you're looking into. But the Chase cards are great to start off with. Most of us as indie authors have businesses. As long as you have an EIN, and this I'm talking in the United States. So in other countries it might be a bit different. The card strategies might be different. I should have mentioned that because I know this is a worldwide conference. You definitely want to, when you're doing some searching about travel hacking, look at your specific country because I know different cards have different rules for various countries. But in the United States, if you have an EIN and you have a business, you can apply for business cards, and business cards are fantastic because they're sign up bonuses are typically higher. Right now, I'm focused solely on business cards. And so this is just one example. All right, there it is, the Chase 524 rule. So this is something to know about right when you get started. And as I mentioned, in order to be approved for a Chase card, you cannot have opened 5 or more personal credit cards across all banks in the last 24 months. So this is focused on personal cards. If I were to obtain a credit card for business, that won't count against my 524 for the most part. You can see in that in number 2, there are some exceptions, but for the most part, uh, it's a personal cards only. But this isn't just with Chase. Any card you open in the last 24 months will count against the Chase 524 rule. So if I open up a Chase Sapphire Preferred and then a Capital One Venture and then a City Premier in the next 5 months, those I'll be at 324. So I've opened 3 cards in 24 months. So it's something you can keep track of either on your own or when you get your credit score, you can kind of take a look at that. But it's something to keep in mind to maximize your 5 Chase slots. Some advise beginning with Chase cards, but not filling all 5 slots. And so that's probably what I would suggest. It's what I've done. I'm at 424 right now. I've been there for a few months and will stay there unless there's an absolutely extraordinary offer that I can't pass up. And that's why I keep that slot open just in case. But for the most part, I'm focused on business cards, waiting for my first 524 slot to open up. So that's just something to keep in mind. If that's in the weeds just a little bit, but I wanted to mention it because The Chase Ultimate Rewards are one of my favorite programs. It's one that you may get started with. So, something to know. Okay, so I said the subs were the most lucrative way of earning points and miles and such, but there's other ways as well, such as category spending. Most travel cards offer bonus categories. While you will put everything on one card to start, so if you start with one card, everything is going to go on there. Eventually, you'll have multiple cards. And so you'll want to keep track of what categories are elevated on each card. And this is where I talked about this could get really intense, and you can have like 10 cards in a year like me, or you might just do one or two and this isn't really relevant. But if you once you start to get a lot of cards, knowing that the Chase Sapphire is 3 times on dining, so that means you earn 3 times points when you go to a restaurant. So if your restaurant bill is $50 and you were to pay that with another card that's one time, then you would just get 50 points. Whereas with Chase, you're earning 150 points on that one um, exchange. City Premier, for instance, is I use that for supermarkets. The Amex Platinum, if you do pay for a flight, there might be instances where you're paying for a flight outright. It's 5 times on flights. Inc. Business Cash is 2 times on gas. I actually use a card called the Wyndham Business Earner, which is 8 times on gas. And so I use that card just for gas because it's a really fantastic card for that, for lots of reasons, but specifically for gas. So category spending is something to keep in mind. How deep in the weeds you get with that is really up to you. I eventually did buy little stickers on Etsy, which I have on my credit card and my husband's credit cards as well. So he knows at least kind of the basics, like use this card for gas, this card for supermarkets, and so on and so forth. But it doesn't have to get that complicated if you don't let it. But be forewarned, this is an addictive hobby. So eventually you probably will start doing that if you really do jump in to travel hacking. Okay. Travel hacking currencies. So I mentioned these right at the start. Generally speaking, the transferable rewards, the bank credit card rewards, are the gold standard and most flexible. So the biggies include the Citi Thank You Points, Chase Ultimate Rewards, Amex Membership Rewards, and Capital One Venture Rewards. Right now, I do have all four programs. I know some people really just do focus on one, and you probably will focus on one to start. But what's really nice about these points, let's take Chase Ultimate Rewards, for example. If I were to open up that ink card that you saw earlier and I had 100,000 points, those 100,000 points could be used for various things: flights, hotels. That's usually what I use them for, but they also could be used for other things as well. Those also can be used for various airlines, various types of hotels. Whereas if you have I'm kind of a Hilton girl, so I have the Hilton Aspire and I focus just on Hilton points. Other people will do that with other hotel brands like Marriott and their Bonvoy program. But with these kinds of rewards, you can use them for various things: hotels, airlines. So that's why they're fantastic. However, there are situations where you want to maybe have loyalty with the hotel. Hotel credit cards offer welcome bonuses as well and perks like elite status. Examples include World of Hyatt, Marriott Bonvoy, Hilton Honors, and IHG. So, as I said, I'm a Hilton girl, so I focus mostly on Hilton. I have diamond status with Hilton, which gives me free room upgrades, free breakfast, just kind of some nice perks, which is one good thing about really kind of honing in on a particular hotel chain. Um, but you don't necessarily have to do that. I'm just kind of saying there's so many different strategies and so many different ways to do it. But if hotels are your thing and you really want to focus on hotel stays, you might be a Hilton loyalist and really be invested in the Marriott Bonvoy program as well. And that's how you kind of want to spread your spend. That's totally up to you. Airline miles, while you can and should transfer bank rewards to book air travel, so taking your Chase Ultimate Rewards points and transferring them out to partners, as I mentioned, I did with JetBlue. Co-branded airline cards can offer additional miles, benefits such as lounge access and free bags and elite status. So having an airline miles specific card is great in some circumstances. For instance, I live in Northeast Pennsylvania and fly out of Newark International Airport most often. That happens to be a United hub. So I have a United card because I end up flying United a lot. That way I can get a free check bag. I can get lounge access with United. And also, I've earned United points from opening that card. So I can kind of take those points and combine them with my ultimate rewards and just fly more with United. So there are some instances where you want to have co branded specific airline cards. And some people, you know, focus on maybe an airline, but others on an alliance. And I'm not really getting into that in this particular presentation because it's a little bit kind of next level. However, there are three airline alliances, and then those alliances will have airlines that are part of those alliance, like the Star Alliance and One World. And so you can really kind of get loyal by sticking with one alliance and gathering points and earning status and things like that. I don't do that necessarily because I have kind of very specific travel. We have a girls trip every November, and those girls like to fly locally. So that's a small airport by my house. It's American Airlines, and so there's lots of different reasons I'm not necessarily sticking to just one alliance or airline. So for me, it makes more sense to kind of focus on the transferable bank rewards and fly not necessarily all the same airline, but that is for some people, you know, goes against kind of what they believe, which is let's do one airline, or one alliance and get as high a status as we can. And then you're talking business class, first class, things like that. Again, going back to everyone has different goals. And so it kind of depends. For me, it's all about I want to travel as much as possible. So I'm a little bit more scattered. But alliances, airline alliances, are something that I'm not really covering here, but you can definitely look into that if being loyal to one is something that you're interested in. Okay, it's a lot of information. The most common question that I get when I talk to someone about travel hacking is, all right, that's great, but where do I start? So I'm actually going to give you a card that most travel hacking gurus, whatever you call them, will say to start with for lots of reasons. And that's a Chase Sapphire Preferred. I do have a referral link. You're welcome to use that or not. But the Chase Sapphire Preferred is a fantastic card. It's a low annual fee. It's a $95 fee. You start the clock on your Chase 524. It is a Chase card. It's the card that I use most often because it's 3 times on dining and I go out a lot to eat, so use it a lot. Typically, it has a decent sub. Right now, it's 60,000 currently. This is one that I would sign up for 60,000, not necessarily wait for a more elevated sub than that. You also get back a $50 annual hotel credit. So you can book a hotel within the Chase portal. It kicks $50 back to you. So if you stay one hotel throughout the year, that $95 fee is now, $45. No foreign transaction fees, which is something you definitely want to look at with your cards, especially as authors, and the way we, um, you know, pay various vendors and travel. And again, it's 3 times on dining and some streaming services and online groceries. So I actually use a Chase Sapphire Preferred card for my online groceries as well. So Instacart. And so this is a kind of a workhorse card and a really great place to start if you're just like I just want to jump in and I don't know where. So that's probably where I would go. But a note on that $95 fee. So we mentioned fees. What's important is not necessarily saying, hey, this has, the, let's see, Hilton Aspire. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I know it's a few $100s. So at first you would think, well, I don't necessarily want to spend, $300 or $400 on an annual fee. However, Hilton Aspire comes with one free night credit every year, a whole bunch of other bonuses that if you utilize them, you start to subtract those perks, those credits from the annual fee. You'll see you're not really paying the total annual fee. So for this case, you're not paying $95 if you're using the hotel, and it's something you would use anyway. Because remember, no manufactured spend. So if I don't ever use hotels, then I want to look at this as a $95 fee. A good example of that is I mentioned before, it's one of my favorite cards, the American Express Platinum card. That is a pretty hefty might be up to $800 fee now. However, with it, I have Priority Pass lounge access. So Priority Pass is a lounge program where there are multiple lounges in multiple places, as opposed to kind of the Centurion, which is just the Amex lounge. Um, and then there's the United clubs, and they're very specific to an airline, and there aren't as many of them. The Priority Pass gives you kind of access to a larger suite of lounges. I get Priority Pass with Amex, in addition to their own lounges as well. I also receive, whether it's global entry or TSA pre-check. I use the global entry because that includes pre-check, but I get that for free. I believe the clear is also included with Amex, but don't quote me on that. Um, so whatever that costs, $100, $200 a year, I take that off of my fee. The Amex also has over $100 in streaming services that I already use: Netflix, Hulu, things like that. Disney, I think Hulu and Disney I use. And so I subtract that every month. Walmart Plus, which is another service that I use, it's $10 or $12 a month. That comes for free with the Amex card. So I start to subtract those things that I do use, and that might take me down to maybe, it only costs $200 out of pocket. So as you jump into this, don't be afraid of annual fees as long as you're using the services. One thing you can do, however, is once your annual fee is about to come up, and I'm going to suggest an app that you can use to see this, you have some options. So I definitely would not cancel a card right away or even within the first year of using it, because that won't necessarily help your credit score. So opening a closing card is not a great idea. But you might say, well, if I'm opening 10 cards, I don't want to pay all these fees. That's fair. You When you come up on your anniversary and you have the annual fee hits, you have some options. One is to close it, which I haven't done yet, but that is an option. I just wouldn't close an older card, going back to your credit score and how it's calculated, but it is an option. You can also downgrade often, and I've done this before, to a no fee card. So not all of the cards have this option, but some of them have. United, for instance, I got the absolute, best. I forget the name of it. United card. I used it for a year. I found that I wasn't really utilizing it as much as I thought I had planned on, and so I downgraded to the no fee card, which gave me, say, like two lounges a year as opposed to unlimited, one free bag versus whatever else it was. I didn't need the more robust one. So I downgraded. I don't pay a fee now. So downgrading a credit card to a no fee card in the same, card family is also an option. But there's a way to do that a little bit easier than keeping mentally track of it. So I'll talk about that in a second. All right, so you have all of these points. What do you do with them? I'm going to be honest with you. Redeeming points to me is the most challenging part of travel hacking. It can be easy if you have one card and you want to get flights and boom, call it a day. However, when you have lots of cards and lots of points, it can get a little bit challenging. So I'm going to try to simplify it. First thing you can use, obviously, is airline miles and hotel points. So as a general rule, you're best to use airline miles on flights and hotel points on hotels. So they can be used in other ways, but if you have an airline card, I would use those miles for flights. If you have a hotel card, I would use those points for hotel stays. That seems obvious, but you're going to see when you log into your dashboards, there's other ways to use them, gift cards, things like that. Those generally aren't as lucrative. So I really kind of wouldn't go down that path. Number two, credit card points. You have more options when using the flexible points, like the bank rewards that I had mentioned. Partner programs often offer the best redemption. So I have a link there so you can delve into that a little bit more. And I would, because while it's fairly easy to earn Chase Ultimate Rewards points and then just transfer those points directly to an airline, like I did with JetBlue, or like I do often with the United flights, there's also airline partners that utilizing those partners can offer even more benefit and even less points for a bigger reward. For instance, and these, I'm going to be honest, to me get a little bit complicated. I have to look up every specific situation to do this. So, for instance, I'm looking at a Hawaii trip for my family for next June. I found a direct flight. So I always start with Google Flights. Okay, let's find out, what are the routes? What are the airlines? And then I can kind of hone in on, so for this one, there's a direct United flight from Newark to Honolulu. However, when I look online, kind of the travel hacking groups, I'll talk about using Turkish Airlines because I can book a United, I believe it's Turkish Smiles points. I can book a United flight using Turkish points and I get more bang for my buck. And so that's kind of the path I'm looking at right now for that specific situation. You'll see as you delve into this, travel hacking groups talk a lot about the airline partners. And so what they're talking about is using an airline partner to redeem points to get a better reward. You can click the link to learn more about that, and you'll see that talked about often in the groups. And for me, I haven't done it a ton. I think I've used maybe two airline partners. Typically, right now, I'm kind of going one to one, which they suggest not to do, but it's kind of worked for me. You just take my flexible rewards and transfer right out to an airline. Um, but the partners are an option as well. Speaking of transferring out, one thing that you should do is before you even utilize these rewards, if you're looking at, you want to fly a JetBlue, sign up for their loyalty program. If you're before you even apply for your Hilton card, sign up for the Hilton loyalty program. So all of these airline and hotels have loyalty programs. You sign up for free. I would do that first. I signed up for a whole bunch off the top, save my logins, and then when you do start utilizing points for these things, you're going to connect your loyalty points to your, membership. And so signing up for all of them is a really great idea. Obviously, you want to sign up for the ones that you're going to use as well. Travel portals. So you can also book travel right within the portal. So Chase and Amex, they have travel portals that you can book directly through. A lot of times the advice is not to do that because it's not the best redemption. And also, you're not going directly with, let's say, that airline. You're going through a third party, and that can get more complicated if there's cancellations or different issues with your flight, let's say. However, it's worth checking because sometimes people get really good deals doing this. So if I'm looking for a flight, let's use my Florida example. It's a very simple example. The very first thing I do is I would go to Google Flights and see what airlines fly from my airport to Orlando. So Newark to Orlando, who flies there? Okay, these are the three airlines that fly there. I can look it up. What points partner with those airlines? So let's say I don't have specific points for that airline, but I do have Chase Ultimate Rewards, which transfer out to JetBlue and to United. Or I have, City Points, which transfer out to Delta. I can kind of start to decide, well, what points do I have and where do I want to go? If I'm about to book, before I do, I always check the portal and look at that flight to see, how much would that flight be through the Amex portal or through the Chase portal. And every once in a while, surprisingly, you'll get a good deal. I got a great deal to Nashville last year, very, very low point value, lower than even directly with the airline. So there are times that I have booked directly through the travel portals, although generally you're not going to do that unless, for example, you have the Chase card, the Chase Sapphire card that comes with a $50 hotel credit that you have to book through the portal. So there are some instances like that where you want to obviously get your credit. Okay, so redeeming, what I would do is I'd click both of those learn more links and then use the resources that I'm going to offer and just read more about redeeming. Don't let it scare you because it definitely can be overwhelming, especially when you're talking about all the airline partners and such. However, it doesn't need to be complicated to start. All right, a few questions that you might have that people I know often will ask me. I already addressed, will your credit score go down? If you're concerned about that, you can read that article or other articles that will explain, what goes into your credit score, like your payment history, amounts owed, credit utilization. When you take a look at all of it and put it together, it actually usually goes up. Is it a scam? Lots of times I get that question, and I mention that right off the bat. That, yeah, it is called travel hacking, but no, it's not a scam. Banks make, as I said, some of their largest profits from credit card interest, and that's why they're willing and able to offer these large bonuses. So where do you start? I already mentioned the Chase Sapphire card, or if you're looking at flights and you have a hub at your particular airport, maybe you want to start there. Really depends on your travel hacking goals. Why pay high annual fees? And that I already did mention that annual fees may be a turnoff, but if you look closely at the benefits, it could still work for you and you might be willing to do it. And I know for me, I was kind of baby steps. I started off with the Chase Sapphire and the $95 annual fee. 6 months later, I'm paying $700 for one card for a fee, but I love that card and I won't give it up. So, and then there's a lot of um, wiggle room in between. And then what about business cards? Specifically as authors, take advantage of the business cards. So I might start with a personal card and then maybe go over to a business card. And then I kind of flip flop back and forth. And well, I used to, and now I'm focused mostly on business cards because of the 524 spot. But they're great because in general, they don't take up a 524 spot. They have elevated bonuses. And then we have a lot of business expenses that can kind of cross over into that area. So business cards are fantastic for authors. All right, I mentioned some resources. My favorite is the Points Guy. So if you click that sign up link, he has a 10 email series, which is easy because it comes to you. It's just a quick email that you can read that will really kind of cover maybe some of the same things we did here today, but just digging in a little bit more. And then also, I would sign up for his regular email. I get the Points Guy's email every day. It's where I stay up on Points news. Absolutely love that as a resource. I learned about travel hacking actually from Travel Hacking Mom, and she's on TikTok and she also has a blog. So that's one I didn't mention, but that's where I first learned about it. She's a great resource as well. My second favorite resource is Travel Freely. That is an app, it's free. And there's also a blog and such, and you can click learn more. But that's a great app because it keeps track of all your cards. You don't link your accounts or anything like that. You just kind of say, this is the card I got, this was the start date. That way it will remind you, hey, you have to meet your sub in 3 weeks. Like, did you do that? And because you never want to miss a sign up bonus. So it's great to keep track of that. It will also give you advice on what to do when your annual fee is hitting. Should you keep it? Should you cancel? Should you downgrade? Sometimes it's hard to figure out. And so that app is fantastic. And then 10 Times Travel is my favorite Facebook group. It's a course. If you really do want to dig in and you're like super excited about this, I took that course. It's free and it's on their website. It really goes a lot deeper than we did today and can absolutely help to get you kind of even deeper into the weeds. So take the course, or if nothing else, jump into the Facebook group and just kind of start fishing around there. It's a great resource. And speaking of Facebook groups, I started one just for authors. I will admit it's new. There's just over 100 people, so it's a little bit slower at the moment, but I'm hoping that as people learn to travel hack, as us authors learn to travel hack, that we will share resources, and it hopefully will be a really nice spot for specifically authors who are going to conferences and utilizing travel specifically for fiction writing to be able to share resources and such. So you can just click on the image and that will take you to Travel Hacking for Authors Facebook group. So whew, that is the presentation. I hope that you are excited to travel for free, as excited as I am to continue to travel for free. And now that I've been talking about all these cards this morning, I'm like ready to get a new card. So there's nothing like that feeling of a brand new card and a brand new sub waiting for you. One of the things that sometimes people will ask too is how often, and that's tough. There's different advice. People in the group sometimes will kind of apply for cards back to back. The resource that I mentioned here, the Travel Freely app, will give you like, hey, it's time to get a new card. And theirs is a little more conservative. I think it's about every 3 months. I go somewhere right in between there. Typically, once I meet a sub, whether it takes a month or month and a half or 2 months, that's when I'll apply for a new card. Haven't been denied yet, but getting denied for a card is something that travel hackers deal with. And there's a lot of ways you can appeal it. That's kind of a whole topic on its own, but the speed of applying for cards is very personal, and it's something that you can learn more about in the groups as well. So I hope you've enjoyed. I hope you're ready to travel. And if you have any questions, pop into the Facebook group and ask. Thank you, Brian, and all the organizers for this fantastic resource, this Fiction Writing Academy, which Marketing Academy, which I absolutely love every year, and I'm excited to dig into all of the other presentations as well. So thanks again, and have a great day.